Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Miranda, and today we are going to be talking about my top 5, actually 6, favorite books that I've ever read. So my only 6 5-star reads that I have currently. The reason it's top 5, but actually 6, is because 2 of them are in a duology together, so for purposes of this video, we're just going to count them as one book because I loved both of them so much. And I have notes. I'm so proud of myself for writing notes. It makes me happy. So as always, we're going to start off with what we are drinking today. Today I am drinking a coffee. Surprising nobody. I got this mug from HEB like a couple years ago, and I think it's really cute. But it's the Colombian coffee, the Nespresso pod, and my favorite coffee creamer of all time. Ooh, good stuff. Which is the International Delight Hershey's Chocolate and Caramel Coffee Creamer. It's my favorite of all time because it just tastes the best. But it's like kind of rare, maybe I should say. It gets sold out really quickly because it's just that good. And so whenever I go to the store, sometimes it's not there for like months. So I haven't had it in about a month. And last time I went to the store on Sunday, they had some, so I bought 2 of them. So I have 2 bottles of my coffee creamer. And I'm very excited to have it back. Like, thrilled. I missed it so much. I have tried so many different kinds of coffee creamer. So, like, I don't like caramel macchiato. So I got this like Starbucks caramel macchiato creamer one time, and I was like, that's just, it was not good. And then I've tried like French vanilla, and I find that to be too sweet. Which is funny because my second favorite coffee creamer is like sweet cream. But the thing about sweet cream is it doesn't like taste like anything. So you really only need to put as much as you need just to make your coffee kind of sweeter. I prefer my coffee on the more bitter side than I do on the sweet side. I don't enjoy black coffee. I'll drink it, but I don't love it. And then I also found a different brand had like a chocolate and caramel coffee creamer, and it was also just bad. So I currently have 3 bottles of coffee creamer sitting in my fridge. One of them I will never touch again. One of them I drink occasionally when I'm out of my normal coffee creamer, and then my normal coffee creamer. And then I keep a bottle of my normal coffee creamer at work. Because I drink coffee at work too. And as always, we have Marvin with us today. Hello, Marvin. Any exciting news, Marvin, you want to say? That is very exciting. So we're going to go ahead and just get started. The first one we're going to be talking about is this series, and it is the Six of Crows and the Crooked Kingdom duology, the Six of Crows duology, which, controversial, I hope does not turn into a trilogy. And I'm not going to spoil anything about Crooked Kingdom, but if you've read Crooked Kingdom and you know what happens in Crooked Kingdom and you want a Six of Crows trilogy, my only question is like, how? How? That's all I'm going to say. Is how do you expect a trilogy to come out after this book? Anyways, the Six of Crows. I love this book. This book is probably my favorite book of all time. It was the book that got me back into reading, which is a really big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and read the back of it for you in case you don't know about Six of Crows. And if you do, then you just get to listen to me read. So, Ketterdam, a bustling hub of international trade where anything can be had for the right price. And no one knows that better than criminal prodigy Kaz Brecker. Kaz is offered a chance at a deadly heist that can make him rich beyond his wildest dreams, but he can't pull it off alone. A convict with a thirst for revenge, a sharpshooter who can't walk away from a wager, a runaway with a privileged past, a spy known as the Wraith, a heartrender using her magic to survive the slums, and a thief with a gift for unlikely escapes. Kaz's crew are the only ones who might stand between the world and destruction, if they don't kill each other first. Love this book. A lot of the things that I love about this book is the heist aspect. They do go on a heist. They're supposed to break into the unbreakable prison, or whatever word they use to describe it. It's called the Ice Court. And it's Fjorda's, which is a country, their like high maximum security prison. And they're asked to go break into the prison, grab somebody, and then leave. Like, that's their heist. And I loved everything about the heist. I loved that, Kaz thought of all these plans. He had plan A, he had plan B, he had plan AA, he had plan, ZZZ. Like, he was so ready with all of the plans. This book, both of these books, but this book has, like, found family. Crooked Kingdom is more of, like, keeping the found family together, but this book is, like, about them finding each other and them becoming a found family. It's a fantasy book. There's magic involved. There's guns. There's really cool kids. There's Inej, who's one of my favorite characters of all time. And it has LGBTQ plus characters. So we have 2 bi individuals and 1 gay individual. I think Wylan is just... Anyways, love, love, love this book. One big thing I like about this book, and I think what really got me back into reading, is the pacing of this book. And I'm going to compare it to a book that I read. So when I reread this book, I had read a different book beforehand, and I'm going to talk about it because it was the biggest contrast I had, and that was Priory of the Orange Tree. I'm going to give Priory of the Orange Tree another chance, knowing what I know about the book and the way that the author writes. But the pacing in this book is done really well. And so in this book, you have your action scenes, and then it gets brought down by conversation. So people talking to each other, internal monologue. You kind of slow down a bit. Then you get brought back into the action. And I thought the pacing was really well done. My problem with Priory of the Orange Tree is it felt like each action sequence took too long, and then each downtime sequence then also took too long. And another part that I really liked about Six of Crows is that things just got done when it needed to get done. There's a scene in either Six of Crows or Crooked Kingdom where Inej runs off to go find intel, and then we get a little bit of like Kaz's internal monologue, and then whoop, Inej comes back and she has the intel that she was looking for. She successfully did it. And in Priory of the Orange Tree, especially towards the end, everything goes wrong. They think of a plan. They're gonna do this thing, and then something goes wrong. Okay, so we have plan B. We're gonna do plan B now. Something goes wrong. Now we have plan C. And it happened every single time. It felt like in the Priory Orange Tree, just nothing went right. But in this book, these people are good at what they do. Like, that's the whole point, is that they're good at being thieves, and that they're good at lying and sneaking and killing and all this stuff. They're good at that. So they're gonna do things correctly and right occasionally. And of course, things do go wrong. This isn't a perfect heist. It doesn't get pulled off easily. But there are just some things that, like, they just get done. They need to break into a safe at some guy's house. They get it done. No big deal. They find the information they need to have. If we do join them to go to, like, break into that safe, that doesn't necessarily mean that something's going to go wrong. Sometimes there's just dialogue that happens at that scene. And I just thought it was really nice that after reading Prior to the Orange Tree, where again everything just felt like it always went wrong, to this book, rereading this book, and just some things just worked. It was super nice. And this book has taught me that third person perspective is the best perspective, and that I do struggle a little bit with first person books. Not saying that I can't read them. I read one just recently. I'm reading one right now. I'm rereading The Cruel Prince. That's in first person. But third person to me, especially in fantasy books, is so nice, because as I'm reading The Cruel Prince, all I want to know is what Cardan's thinking, like how he's like, when Jude does something, I want to like, well, how does he respond, or what does like Taryn think about that? I just want to know these things. I don't like not knowing. So Six of Crows, you know pretty much what everyone's thoughts are, but not all the time. A lot of like Kaz's like plan AAs, you don't know until they come up. So there's so much going on in Kaz's brain that we don't know about, and I love that. And Cricket Kingdom is just awesome and amazing, and it's such a good follow-up. It's really just about after the heist, all their shenanigans afterwards. I do have some strong words I need to talk to with Lee Bardugo about certain things, and if you've read Crooked Kingdom, I'm sure you know what those certain things are. Me and Lee Bardugo, we gotta have a talk. Okay? We gotta have a talk. Love these two books. If you are not sure about like getting into fantasy, this book I think has quite low fantasy elements. Like, yeah, you have Nina, who's the Heartrender, and she uses magic, but it's not like there's not elves everywhere, and people speak different languages because they're from different countries, and they do have the magic users, but it's not like overwhelming. So it's still fantasy, but it's less important. The magic part of these books is less important than it was in Shadow and Bone, because Shadow and Bone's main character is a saint. In this book, we don't have that. So Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, 5-star to both of them. Loved them so much, and I highly, highly, highly recommend. Out of all of the books I'm going to talk about today, if you take away anything from this video, it's that you should read Six of Crows. If you've already read it, you should reread it. Such a good book. Love it, love it, love it. And so the next book we're going to be talking about today is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. It is the first Crescent City book. And this book kind of unhinged. Loved it so much. So what kind of happens in this book is that we have main character Bryce and her best friend Danica. And this is not really a spoiler. I mean, it is a spoiler if you don't read anything about the book before going into it, but it does explain that this happens if you read any like summary things. So if you go on Goodreads to read about the book, it does talk about this. Danica gets murdered, and it's pretty much about Bryce trying to solve the murder, and the government officials called the Asteri, the Angels, give her a helper named Hunt, and he has to help her solve the murder because there are more murders happening, so they have to solve the crime. And this book is so fun. So it's on contrast, very, very different style of book to Six of Crows. It is very high fantasy. You have angels, you have fae, you have mermaids, you have otters, cute little otter creatures. You have like werewolves. I guess they're just wolves. I don't know if they're werewolves, but you have high fantasy creatures. There's magic everywhere. You got a magic sword. There's a magical horn. It's lots and lots and lots of magic in this book. It's a enemies to lovers. It's more of like they don't like each other. to lovers. I wouldn't necessarily say it's enemies, like enemies, but it's a dislike to lovers. Um, it's a modern fantasy, so they use like cell phones and they go out like partying and they watch. It's called Sunball, but I'm pretty sure it's just football, like American football. Um, and they have like normal jobs. Like Hunt is on the police force. Essentially, he's the super secret. Well, I guess he's more. It's more like he's in the FBI. Hunt's in the FBI. What else? Oh, there's like close proximity. Hunt and Bryce have to stay pretty close to each other. He's kind of like her guardian. You know, he's got to watch over her while she goes and does all her crazy stuff. And this book is just fun. Like, there's a lot of really sad moments and a lot of crazy moments, but it's mostly just fun. It's just bros being bros and Bryce being the smartest dumbass out there. And I loved every character in this book. This book has two different perspectives. It's between Bryce and Hunt, which again, I like the third perspective. I like knowing what Bryce is thinking. I like knowing what Hunt is thinking. It makes it easier to appreciate all of the characters. I really like third person books. I'm just gonna say it. I also just love Hunt. I love everything about Hunt. He puts on this like persona that he's like super dark and scary. He's called the Umbra Mortis. He has this skull mask. You know, he goes out and like assassinates people for the government. Like that's his thing. And then like he gets home and he's just lounging around watching Sunball in his like backwards baseball cap. Maybe Sunball's baseball. I don't know. Whatever sport it is, it doesn't matter. But like he is just a bro. Deep down he is just a bro. And he listens to podcasts while he works out. What a bro, honestly. What I also really liked about this book is I used to really enjoy crime novels back in like high school. Well, I say crime novels. I was really into Criminal Minds. Not really crime novels. And so this just kind of brought me back to that. Kind of there is the murder mystery going on that I really liked. And I will say it. I'm going to say it. Here we go. I'm going to say it. You guys ready? There's smut in this book. And guess what? I liked it. I like smut. Sorry, not sorry. I think the way Sarah J. Maas writes smut is totally fine. I said it. It may be controversial. This book is the least smuttiest out of the two, but there is a little something something in there. So I'm just saying it. There is smut in this book, and I like smut. So come at me, I guess. I love this book. I think I read it in like 2 days, and it's like a pretty hefty book. Loved it. Thought it was just fun. What a good read. The second book I did not enjoy as much. I thought it was just there's too much going on and it was too confusing. But this book, it makes sense. There's the murder mystery and then all the craziness. Really great book. Loved it. So the very next book that we have is A Court of Mist and Fury, also by Sarah J. Maas. I said this in my last video when I was talking about the books I plan on reading for June, that Sarah J. Maas has me in a chokehold. I love her books so much. Court of Mist and Fury is the second book in the ACOTAR series, and it is my favorite one so far. At this moment, I haven't read the fifth book. But it was everything I wanted in a fantasy book. So if you don't know anything about ACOTAR, it follows a girl named Feyre, and she gets taken by the High Lord Tamlin because she killed a wolf, and so he takes her away from her family, and then it's essentially her just living in Prithian, trying to figure out how to like, get back to her family, and then her falling in love, and blah, 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 blah. So that's the first book. And a lot of stuff goes down. So you should read them. But the second book is my favorite, again, because a lot of it was just what I was looking for in a fantasy book. It has enemies to lovers, it has one bed, it has close proximity, it has slow burn romance, it has that banter that you really want from enemies to lovers. It is fantasy. Obviously, you got fae, you got people with wings, you probably have mermaids, though I don't know. There's a lot of like mental health kind of issues. They got nightmares, but they have to go and like protect one another from the nightmare that they're having. There's war and death, although the war doesn't happen in this book. There's definitely like talk of war, you know, people get killed. Loved it. It was so good. And I really liked how everything was approached, especially when it comes to all of the mental health stuff. I thought Sarah J. Maas did a wonderful job. Luckily for me, I've a lot of the mental health stuff that gets talked about in this book I've never experienced for myself, so I'm definitely from an outside point of view. I thought it got talked about pretty well, but maybe other people think differently. I don't know. I also really love the relationships in this book. They are just wonderful. Um I don't want to give like too many like spoilers, but I'm going to call the group the Bat Boys, and I just love the friendship between the Bat Boys. All of the Bat Boys are amazing, and every friendship involved with the Bat Boys, 10 out of 10. They're just fun. They're also Bat Boys are also just bros being bros. Bat Boys and Hunt would totally get along. They would totally do that. There's also smut in this book. And again, I really like smut, so I enjoyed it, and I thought it was a really good book. It really, yeah, just everything I wanted out of a fantasy book, this book gave me, and so it was, yeah, just the best book of the series. I really enjoyed it. So thank you, Sarah J. Maas. And I hope Throne of Glass is really good. Because I'm reading that next, everybody. Just so you know, Throne of Glass is on my list. I will be reading it. Stupid Sarah J. Maas. The next book we are talking about is The King's Men from Nora Sakavic. This book is the third book in the All for the Game series, which I talked about in my Aurelium video, because that's when I read the first book, was for the Aurelium video. And so the first book is about a guy named Neil. His dad is in the mafia, but he's currently in jail, and he's been on the run his whole life because he doesn't, want his dad to find him ever and all that stuff. And he plays a sport called Exy. My best comparative to Exy is lacrosse, but it's like lacrosse and indoors, and you have to throw the ball against the wall. It's the best way I can describe it. What Exy is not that important in the book. Just the fact that there's a sport called Exy, and Neil is addicted to Exy. He loves playing Exy. It's his favorite sport. It's his favorite thing. It's all he thinks about half the time. And so he joins the Palmetto Foxes, a university sport team, despite the fact that he really probably shouldn't. He tells himself all the time that he shouldn't do it because Exy is the most popular sport in the United States in this universe. So, you know how popular like college football is? It's like that with Exy. So, if Neil was really, really good, and he is really, really good, like he's going to be on the news and stuff. Like people are going to be talking about Neil. So he tells himself that he shouldn't do it, but he does it anyways because he's addicted to Exy and all that stuff. And the third book, the reason I really liked the third book was I thought it just wrapped everything up very nicely. It's got found family. I think also I would describe it as enemies to lovers, but maybe not. It's a contemporary book. It's got that trauma healing stuff that A Court of Mist and Fury has, but without the nightmares. Um, it's really, really big on found family. That's the kind of main trope for just the entire series. But in this book specifically, is when you start to really see the character development. Like, obviously, they're growing the whole time. You know, Neil occasionally fluctuates. They all occasionally fluctuate, but for the most part, they're growing. You know, they go up more than they go down. And you really can tell once they get to this book how much they've grown. A lot of stuff that probably would have set them off in the first book doesn't quite do it yet. They've become more trusting, they're more open with each other. The team is a lot more supportive of each other. It's really just good. I really like this book. I think all of the tension and the stress and all the build up from the first two books, you finally hit that climax. I think one part of the book I was kind of disappointed in, but I was like, whatever, doesn't really matter. And the climax happens and everything just kind of falls into place after that. And it's just, you get to the end of the book and you're like, okay, I think the Palmetto Foxes are going to be okay. And at the end of it all, they're going to be okay. And I love that for them. And I'm just happy that the way it resolves everything. And I think it's a wonderful series. And I just think this book is the best book because you get all those resolutions. All the tension is finally out. You know, characters still have things that they need to work on, but you know what? They can go work on it off page. They've done what they've needed to do for us. They can go off screen now. It's a great series. I highly recommend looking at the trigger warnings and then reading it if you're cool with the trigger warnings. Highly, highly recommend. So the final book that we have is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This book is just a feel-good fantasy book. Happy, kind of, just, yeah, it's just meant to make you feel good. It talks about a orc who used to be an adventurer named Viv and how she goes and discovers coffee like on her adventures, and she decides that she's going to open a cafe, and she meets her friends, her new friends in this town. So she meets, I can't remember their names. I'm going to read them. Sorry. So she meets Calamity, aka Cal, who helps her build the place. Then she recruits Tondri to kind of help her, like as her like assistant. She helps make the drinks and do all that stuff. And then they get a baker named Thimble. And then they have a bard named Pendry. And they adopt a cat named Amity. Which I thought it was cute because they have Cal and then Amity. So you still have Calamity. So you have Calamity squared pretty much. And it's just really her journey opening and running a cafe. And obviously there's some conflict between her and her last group that she left. But it all around is just a feel good book. And I really like this book mostly because when I was in middle school and high school, I really wanted to open up a bakery. That was my dream, was to open a bakery. And then I kind of lost that dream in college. I realized it wasn't really something that I wanted to do anymore. And now I'm kind of like, if I could do anything, if money was no object and I just wanted to do something that I thought would be fun, I would own a cafe. Because I love coffee, I love pastries, and I would have it connected to either like a bookstore or just a book nook. But I would care more about the cafe. I would hire Aurelium Girly Winter to manage the book stuff. And then if a William girly Brittany wanted to be involved, she can be involved, but I don't know if she'd want to. She's more into like animal rescues. So what I would do is I would always make sure that we have treats if she ever decides to adopt a million animals. We would always have treats for her at my cafe. And so watching Viv quite literally build her cafe from the ground up just gave me a feeling of like I would love to do that, and I used to want to do that, and that was my dream. And it was just nice to kind of revisit that feeling of, man, doesn't that sound like a lot of fun? And I really enjoyed it. It's short. It took me about 4.5 hours to read. It probably would have taken me less, but I was constantly getting disrupted, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. And it was just it was just nice. There was a little romance. It's a found family. It's LGBTQ plus, and it's just happy. It's a happy feel good book, and I definitely felt good after it. I really did enjoy it. And I'm gonna say this right now, loud and proud: Thimble, my man or woman. I don't think it actually ever gets explicitly said if Thimble is a female or male. Doesn't matter. I love Thimble. Thimble is the best character. I will fight anyone who says that Tandry was the best or Viv was the best or Cal. It was Thimble. I loved Thimble so much. But I would want to be Thimble if, well, I'd want to be Viv, as terms of like management wise. But I loved Thimble. He made me so happy. So yeah, that is all my top 5, actually 6 books. Those are the only 6 books that currently have 5 stars on my Goodreads and are my favorite books of all time. So maybe in like 2 years I can come back and revisit this and we'll have twice as many books. So yeah. Thanks so much for watching. Please let me know down below what you guys are currently drinking. If you are drinking anything. If you're not, then just let me know what you wish you were drinking instead. Yeah, I think that's about it. Any closing remarks, Marvin? Thank you. All right, again, thanks so much. Love you guys, and have a wonderful morning, evening, night, afternoon, or whatever it is wherever you are. Goodbye!